Okay, so let's discuss cheap ways to play Game Boy Advance games on the DS. Assuming you don't have any Game Boy Advance games for the front slot. There is the R4 card. 8 years ago, I bought it for like $12. And then there is the Supercard SD or Micro SD, which I bought recently for like $20 to $25. The R4 card will be done with emulation, which has its setbacks, and the Supercard SD will be using the backwards compatibility mode in the DS, but it also has its setbacks, such as the external RAM being a bit too slow in this, which can lead to some performance issues as well. So first, let's talk about the Supercard Micro SD for the backwards compatibility mode. Now let's play something like Mario Kart. Keep in mind that you do have to have a program on your computer to convert these files. You can see the performance is actually quite horrible. That is no doubt due to the slower external RAM of this thing. And sadly, the Game Boy Advance's backwards compatibility mode does not make use of the Nintendo DS's 4 megabytes of RAM. Right, so this is unplayable. Now, if we go over to the emulation side of things with the R4 card, if you're going to use the Game Boy Advance, the GBA Runner 2 emulator, you'll have to use the YS menu if you're using an R4 card. Right, if it'll focus on that, it's YS menu. Once you get into that, then you'll have to select the emulator. Either ARM7 or ARM9. I've found that it doesn't really make much of a difference. And then you'll select the game down here. I have them all in a single folder. Now let's try that same exact game. As you can see, the performance is massively improved through emulation, as opposed to using the Supercard and Game Boy Advance backwards compatibility. If I were able to play this with two hands, I would use that. But you can see just from the start the improvement here. And I have found that that's actually very common among some 2D games. Like Metroid Fusion has, on occasion, a few performance issues, as well as the Game Boy Advance port of Super Mario World, as opposed to the emulator, which doesn't have those problems as often. Now, let's show you some games where the Super card here for the Game Boy Advance actually works better than the emulator. For one, it actually will play games like Wing Commander, Street Racing Syndicate, and a few of these other true 3D games that the emulator just can't handle, and it'll actually make the DS freeze. One or two of these Need for Speed games has some kind of DRM, so you can't really play them. And there's a few other games like Zelda, for example, which can't play. Like, for some reason, it won't hold a save or something like that. I don't know exactly what it was. But let's go and play a game like Duke Nukem Advance. Playing one-handed is awful, but as you can see, it is playable. On occasion, you'll get some lag, but it's overall very playable like this. And the lag is somewhat negligible. Now back to the emulation side of things. Let's try that same game, Duke Nukem Advance. As you can see, the way this game works, or doesn't, is very unplayable, and even as unplayable as it is, you can quite clearly see the exhaustive lag as well as the graphics glitches that are happening. This is a nightmare. And games like Doom and Doom 2 for the Game Boy Advance play exactly like this, more or less. Doom 2 is actually even worse than Doom 1, at least. And you get similar problems when you try to emulate the Need for Speed games, although not quite to this horrible extent. As opposed to when you're playing it with this, you actually can at least play them. So overall, I would say that Game Boy Advance emulation has actually come pretty far for emulating on an R4 card. Back in the old days, the only games you could really emulate on a Game Boy Advance with sound was Pokemon Fire Red, a very specific version of that ROM, and Fire Emblem. Now you can play a considerable amount of games, and in some cases with better performance than what you get with this. And for other games, this works better. Usually I have found that this works better for the 3D games, like Duke Nukem, Doom 1 and 2, Street Racing Syndicate, the Need for Speed games, whereas this works better, for the most part, with the 2D games. You know, games like Kirby, Mario, Mario Kart. I know Mario Kart looks 3D, but it's not. It's faking it. It's just a rotated and scaled or scrolled background layer where the bottom lines are zoomed in more than the top lines to give the effect of 3D, and it looks pretty good. To their credit, it's a really good way of faking 3D. But this actually plays the Game Boy Advance version of Ghost Rider a lot better. So there are some exceptions, but I would argue that you can play a considerable amount of Game Boy Advance games with just these two little flash cards, right? Your R4 and your Supercard Micro SD. And yeah, so peace.